Boat Building Standards Decoded, what ABYC, CE, and ABS mean. You're looking at a boat listing and you read ABYC compliant, CE certified, ABS classified, NMMA, RCD, and suddenly what started as an exciting search for a boat turns into an alphabet soup. Here is what nobody tells you. Most of the people writing those listings don't fully understand what those acronyms mean either. And that confusion can cost buyers time and money. In this video, we're going to cut through the acronym fog, and by the end, you're going to know exactly what these standards mean and what they don't mean, and the one question you should be asking that almost nobody asks when evaluating a boat. Section 1. Why this matters more than you think. Let's start with why the acronym fog exists in the first place. Boat standards and certifications come from different countries, different regulatory bodies, and different eras of boat building. They weren't designed to work together, they weren't designed to be compared, and they certainly weren't designed to be used as marketing bullet points. But that's exactly how they ended up in listings and magazine write-ups. From this point forward, we are addressing recreational boats. Keep in mind, other regulations apply to commercial vessels. Here's a real example. A boating publication once described a 67-foot yacht as being, and I'm quoting directly, certified by ABS with Bureau Veritas unrestricted navigation, CE Category A ocean rating, and meeting NMMA/ABYC standards. That sentence has at least 3 factual errors in it. ABS doesn't even look at boats smaller than 79 feet. CE certification is specific to boats sold in the European Union. It's not a global quality badge. And NMMA and ABYC are 2 separate organizations. The point isn't to embarrass a magazine. The point is the acronym fog is real. It's widespread, and when you're making a 6- or 7-figure purchase decision, you cannot afford to navigate it blind. So let's fix that. Section 2, the foundation, ABYC and the US market. In the United States, the federal government actually has a fairly limited role in regulating recreational boat construction. Federal law through the US Coast Guard primarily covers small boats under 20 feet with gas engines, plus safety equipment requirements like life jackets, fire extinguishers, and navigation lights that apply broadly. For everything above that, the government handed the wheel to private industry. Enter the American Boat and Yacht Council, ABYC. Founded in the 1950s to keep pace with the post-war recreational boating boom, ABYC publishes more than 65 standards covering nearly every aspect of boat design, construction, and systems. Electrical, fuel, propulsion, structural, everything. Now, here is the part that surprises most buyers. ABYC compliance in the US is voluntary. There's no ABYC inspector showing up at the shipyard. There's no stamp of approval at the end of the build. A builder decides to comply, trains their engineers, and takes on the responsibility of meeting those standards. The language in the ABYC documents is deliberate about this. A builder shall means it's a requirement for compliance. A builder should means it's a recommendation. But the compliance itself, it's on the builder's honor. By the way, an important distinction here. ABYC compliant means the builder has formally committed to following ABYC standards as written. They've trained their team, implemented the processes, and are stating they meet the specific requirements in the standards documents. When ABYC says a builder shall do something, compliant builders do it. Contrast that with built to ABYC standards. That's marketing language, and while it sounds similar, it commits to nothing specific. You're probably thinking, so what's the incentive for builders to actually follow it? 2 things. First, safety. These standards represent decades of accumulated engineering knowledge about what keeps boats and their crews alive. Second, liability. A builder who knowingly deviates from ABYC standards and has an incident faces serious legal exposure. So the incentive is real. ABYC compliance is the professional baseline in the US recreational boating industry. But there's actually a harder enforcement mechanism than liability alone. Insurance companies and lending institutions routinely require marine surveys, and surveyors assess boats against ABYC standards. a boat found out of compliance can face denied coverage or a blocked loan. So while no inspector shows up at the shipyard, ABYC compliance has real financial consequences in the market. And that's why it holds. Here is the thing though, ABYC is genuinely significant on a global scale, as many countries have adopted ABYC language directly into their own regulatory frameworks. Some have written it into law. That's a significant endorsement of the quality of the guidance. If you're in the process of evaluating a boat, new or pre-owned, and you'd like to talk through how its specifications and build standards affect its value, reach out to us at Current Yachts. There's a link in the description. Now, let's keep going because the European standard is where things get interesting. Section 3, CE, the European standard. In 1996, the European Union introduced the Recreational Craft Directive, the RCD, a unified set of construction requirements for every boat sold in any EU member country. Under this framework, compliance isn't voluntary, it's the law. To sell a boat in the EU, it must go through third-party inspection and receive a CE mark. That mark means an independent inspector reviewed the technical documentation, physically inspected the boat, and confirmed it satisfies the RCD requirements. Worth noting, for boats under about 39 feet, CE compliance can actually be self-certified by the builder. The mandatory third-party inspection only kicks in above that size. So CE isn't a blanket guarantee of external scrutiny on every boat. The documentation requirements still exist, but the level of oversight scales with the size of the vessel. There are over 60 standards supporting the RCD, each tied to a specific ISO, International Organization for Standardization, document. So the requirements are detailed, documented, and enforced. Now, and this is the part that matters for buyers shopping for European-built boats, the actual technical content of the RCD and ABYC is remarkably similar. The biggest real-world difference between a CE boat and an ABYC boat isn't in how they're built, it's in the paper trail. CE boats require formal documentation, checklists, and third-party sign-off at every stage, and that process adds cost to the build. But it also creates a documented record that a US-built ABYC-compliant boat typically doesn't have in the same form. What this means when you're buying a pre-owned European boat and bringing it to the US? The CE mark tells you the boat was built to a regulated standard and has documentation to prove it. That's not nothing, but it doesn't automatically make it superior to a well-built American boat. It just means the compliance process was externally verified rather than self-certified. One more thing worth mentioning here. The UK has its own commercial vessel code under the MCA, the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency. This applies specifically to crude charter vessels operating under UK registration, including in overseas territories like the Cayman Islands and Bermuda. If you're buying an ex-charter boat that operated under UK registration, this is relevant territory to understand. Section 4. Australia, New Zealand, and the global baseline. Australia and New Zealand have their own standards, primarily for electrical installations on boats. The AS/NZS standard borrows heavily from ABYC, so for builders already up to code with ABYC, the incremental requirements are modest. Compliance is mandated by law, but unlike the CE process, there's no formal third-party inspection required up front. Builders document their own compliance and need to be able to demonstrate it if a regulator asks. The pattern here is worth noticing. Whether you're looking at US, European, or Australian standards, there's a genuine global convergence around a core body of boat building knowledge, and ABYC sits near the center of it. The acronym Fog makes these standards seem more different than they actually are. Most people stop here, but the last category we need to cover is in a completely different league, and it's the one most commonly misunderstood. Section 5. Classification, the highest tier and the most misused term. When you hear the name ABS, Lloyd's Register, Bureau Veritas, RINA, or DNV, you're hearing about classification societies. These are organizations with roots in commercial shipping. cargo vessels, tankers, offshore platforms. They build standards for vessels that need to operate continuously, commercially, and safely across the world's oceans. Their involvement in pleasure yachts is in a specific, relatively niche application of that expertise, and it only applies at scale. ABS, for example, doesn't classify vessels smaller than 24 meters. That's about 79 feet. Below that size, classification isn't even available for most of these bodies. So when you see a 50-foot boat described as ABS certified, that's the acronym Fog at its thickest. For boats that do qualify, and we're talking mega yachts and super yachts in the 80-foot plus range, classification is a significant undertaking. The Classification Society reviews and approves the design drawings before a single piece of hull is laid. They conduct multiple inspections throughout the build. The documentation requirements are extensive. The materials and equipment must meet elevated standards. The cost premium for classification is substantial. For a large production yacht in the 86-foot range, the additional cost of ABS classification has been estimated at over $300,000. And classification isn't a one-time event. Class vessels require ongoing surveys throughout their lifetime to maintain their status. So what does classification actually mean for a buyer? It means the vessel was designed, built, and inspected to a standard originally developed for commercial use. A standard designed to hold up under years of heavy continuous operation. It is the highest documented level of third-party scrutiny available in boat building. For large yachts operating in offshore or blue water conditions or entering certain commercial charter markets, classifications can be a genuine differentiator. But for anything under 80 feet, classification doesn't apply, and the presence of Classification Society names in the listing almost certainly reflects a misunderstanding or deliberate overclaiming. If you are evaluating a larger yacht and wondering whether its classification status or lack of one affects its value or insurability, that is exactly the kind of question we work through with our clients at Current Yachts. Reach out through the link below or subscribe so you don't miss the videos we're doing on marine surveys, insurance, and registration. Hot topics that connect directly to this one. Section 6, what this means when you're actually buying a boat. So let's bring this all back to the decision you're actually trying to make. When you're evaluating a boat, new or pre-owned, the right way to interpret the standards is as context, not as a score. A US-built boat that complies with ABYC standards is built to a serious, well-developed body of engineering guidance. The compliance is self-certified, but the standards themselves are legitimate and widely respected. A CE-marked boat was built to a comparable technical standard, externally verified with formal documentation. That documentation can be valuable, particularly when it comes to resale or importation. An AS/NZS compliant boat meets a regional electrical standard closely aligned with ABYC. A classified vessel, again, we're talking 80 plus feet, has gone through the most intensive third-party scrutiny available in recreational boat building. That has real meaning. What none of these standards are, a guarantee of quality beyond their specific scope. A boat can be fully ABYC compliant and still be poorly built. CE certification confirms regulatory compliance, not craftsmanship. Classification verifies structural and system standards, not finish quality or maintenance history. The question you want to be asking isn't, what certifications does this boat have? The better question is, what do I know about how this boat was actually built, maintained, and used? If you want to learn how to assess the build quality of a boat, I will link to our dedicated video in the description below. As for a thorough review of a boat's condition, that's where a proper marine survey comes in. That's where reviewing service records matters. And that's where working with a broker who understands both the technical standards and the actual condition of boats in general can make a real difference. The technical differences between the major standards are smaller than the marketing suggests, and none of them replace the due diligence of an independent survey and the guidance of a professional yacht broker. Look, the acronym fog is real. It inflates listings, confuses buyers, and occasionally inflates prices for certifications that don't mean what sellers imply they mean. But now you know how to read past it. If you like this video and find it useful, Subscribe to Current Yachts now. On our channel, we cover the topics that boat buyers and sellers need to better understand: financing, surveys, tax planning, charter placement, and so much more. And if you're actively shopping for a boat or thinking about selling and want guidance from a team committed to serving you in complete transparency, contact Current Yachts today. We'll see you in the next video. Fair winds!